I've been a Fioli financial advisor for over 20 years. So you would think I could answer any question on personal finance. But you know the one question I don't know the answer to, and maybe you can help me with it. Why do Americans suck at saving money? We're so bad. And I wish that wasn't the case. I mean, the stats are really startling. Over half of Americans say that if they had a $1,000 unexpected expense, maybe their car breaks down, maybe they break their arm and they have to go to the emergency room and get their arm set, something like that, over half of Americans would not be able to do that. And that's a really scary situation. And so in today's video, I'm going to share with you 7 habits that anybody can do to improve their savings, because that's really the first step to achieving your financial goals. So let's jump in. And so the first question that I have for people, or I'm trying to evaluate, is it that they don't know, or is it that they don't care, right? Because the people that don't care, right, they don't want to save money. They want to spend all the money that they make. God bless, it's their life. I'm not making a judgment call here. I wouldn't want to live that way. But for people that aren't saving money because they don't know how to do it, really the first thing, it sounds pedestrian, but the first thing is to create a budget. And really budget comes in 2 sizes. One is a high-level budget and one is a detailed budget. So let's talk about both of those. A high-level budget, what I would suggest people look at is looking at their needs, their wants, and then anything that's not a need or a want hopefully goes into savings. So our needs are things like paying our rent or our mortgage, paying our utility bill, having a car so we can get to work, and paying for car insurance, fuel, things that we need in today's world. And I would put internet access into that as well. In today's world, we all need internet access and we need a cell phone. So those are now needs, not wants. And then look at your wants and really say, how much of my money is going to wants, and can you cut back on that? And the ideal, which is really hard to get to, is you look at your take-home pay, what you get after taxes, and you try to break that. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. Spend 50% or less on your needs, 30% or again less on your wants, and then try to save about 20%. And it's really hard to do that. But the first place is to identify those needs and wants. The other way, which I personally don't do, but some people find it very helpful, is to do a detailed budget. Look at every line item, look at everything that you spend, and try to come up with a budget and say, okay, how do we squeak out an extra 5%, an extra 10% for savings? So that's the first one. Okay, the next one is really evaluating the purchases that you make. So maybe for a month, maybe for 2 months, I want you to take all of your want purchases, right? So it's not your rent and utilities, it's the other things. I want you to look at those wants, and I want you to categorize those first in the buckets that you say, this brought me a lot of joy. Okay, so maybe the Starbucks, the $8, it's now $8 a cup where I live, the $8 Starbucks. If I spent $8 on a Starbucks, but I went there with a friend and I had a great conversation, man, that is money really well spent. But, if I look back at the end of the month and I've spent, 8 times 30 is $240 if I stop at Starbucks every day. Did that give me a lot of joy? I don't know. You've got to do it for yourself, but really break it into categories. What gave you joy and what did not give you joy? And then, obviously look at the things that did not bring you joy. And convenience is a good reason to buy something, right? Sometimes you've been working late, you're tired, you don't have the energy to cook, so you stop and you get something to eat. That's great. But if you're doing that every day after work, that can add up. So really look at the purchases that you make that bring you joy and the ones that don't. Okay, number 3. And this one, I promise you, everybody watching this video has had practice with this one. But it's super powerful, and I think it's worth doing again, which is going 30 days living just on your needs. Now, when did we have 30 days where we all did that? Well, as a country, we did that at the start of COVID, right? Or at least the vast majority of us did, right? The whole country shut down and we were all in our basements trying to figure things out, and we really couldn't spend money. Over time, we figured out ways we could spend money again. But for the first day, it was really about just hunkering down and just coming to grips with this new reality, which was really hard for us. But I think that's a healthy experiment to do. If you're not reaching your savings goals, just like for your diet, you might do a sugar cleanse and cut sugar out of your diet completely for 30 days. Or as I record this, it's the dry month of the year where people say, okay, for this month of the year in the United States, let's try not to drink alcohol, right? And it's probably good once a year to do things like that. Well, I don't know if you want to do this once a year because it is hard, but every now and then go 30 days and just live off of your needs and cut out as many of those wants as you can. I think that'll help you identify. And if you can, journal these things, because as you identify these, I want you to capture them, which is, what are the things you really miss? What are the things that you're like, man, yeah, I told Azul I would do this, but 30 days is long, but I would argue almost anybody can do almost anything for 30 days. It's short enough that we can get through it, right? So you may have said, all right, I promised Azul I was going to do this, but first thing I'm going to do is go buy a Starbucks coffee. Okay, well, that tells you something. Starbucks coffee. I shouldn't keep mentioning Starbucks here, but I think it's an example we can all relate to. That tells you that, that's something that brings joy to your life. But I bet if you journal and you write down the things, there's going to be a bunch of things that you don't miss. For instance, you may have a Netflix account, you may have a Hulu account, you may have another streaming service. Do you really need 3? Maybe. That's your decision, not mine. But I suspect you're going to not miss all 3 of those. So now you're saying, oh, I didn't realize Azul was talking about cutting out my streaming services too. Well, that might be pretty hard to do. So maybe we cheat. We put a little asterisk and we do one of those. Okay. The next one is thinking about speaking of streaming, the things that we buy on autopilot in the example that I just mentioned. How many things just show up and get billed to your credit card every month and you're like, you know what, I really have to cancel that. So avoiding buying things on autopilot, and occasionally, probably every 6 months, look at the things that just auto charge to your credit card and ask yourself, is this bringing joy in my life? Okay, the next one is delaying gratification. And I'm guilty of this. This is probably my biggest difficulty is I see something, I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. And I typically am like a gadget person. I see something and I say, oh, that's really cool. And then I end up buying it. And, 9 times out of 10, I'm usually happy with it, but not always. But what's better to do, and I've started doing this myself, is not buying it and just waiting a week. Now, don't write down a note somewhere. Don't put it in your computer. Don't put it in your calendar. In a week, I want to buy this gadget. You know what? If in a week you still want to buy that gadget, or if in a week you still want to spend the money the way that your impulse was telling you to do it in the moment, if in a week you still want to do that, great. But you shouldn't have to set a reminder. If you forget about it, good. Just saved you some money. Okay, so that was number 5. Number 6 is looking at your goals and just making sure, breaking down big goals into smaller pieces. For younger people, it's saving their first $100,000. But that can, if you're saving $10,000 a year and you're getting 7% return on that money, that's going to take you about 8 years to save up. That's a long period of time, and you can have a lot of fun on an extra $10,000 a year, right? So you need to give yourself these small rewards. So I would break that into $10,000 goals, or maybe $25,000. Reach that goal, $25,000, and then, go spend a little bit of money, splurge, and congratulate yourself with that. And then start working on saving that next $25,000. So take the big goals and break it down into smaller chunks. And then I really want you, this one's really powerful, and that is I really want you to think about paying yourself first. What would happen in your life if when you got your paycheck, right, they take out the taxes, and then you set 10% of money aside and you put that in an account that you really try not to touch? What if you paid yourself first? Let's say your take-home pay, just to give myself easy math, is $5,000 a month. What if you took $500 and you put that in an account and said, okay, now I have $4,500 to spend for the rest of the month. right? What if you paid yourself first? So I encourage you to give that a try. I also encourage you to watch this video up here because we're talking about saving money, but the end goal is to have financial security in your future and retire. And that's what this video up here is. 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.